What's up, everybody? It's the Woodward Bet Show here at the Woodward Sports Network. It's Monday. I got my boy Detroit Beastie with me. What's going on, Beastie?
Now, my little case of the Mondays, right? There's still. I know this might be weird, but it's still. I'm still hung over a little bit, not from alcohol or drugs, but hung over physically and mentally from that football game on Saturday. It's still like you wake up and you go, "Damn it, they really beat Ohio State on Saturday," and damn it, they moved to number 2. It's too good to be true right now. So just soaking it all in, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was 10 years of pent up anger we had there. I mean, getting our butts kicked like we did for 10 years. But, dude, if that wasn't what college football is all about, I don't know what college football is about. I mean, that was, from what I'm understanding, the most watched college football game on Fox Sports in the history of Fox Sports. So that right there should tell you something. And I'll tell you, man, if you're a recruit, why wouldn't you want to play in that game? I mean, even if you're not on the Michigan side, even just to be on the Ohio State side, I mean, that has to be something just amazing to see. I mean, if you were, there we got a little clip of Haskins. I mean, how can you not even consider this kid too to be in the Heisman talk at this point? I mean, that game is where legends are born. I mean, all these times we see these clips of the Desmond Howards and the Charles Woodson's. It always has something to do with this game here. And Haskins definitely put his mark on it with 5 touchdowns. You got to consider him now in the Heisman race. And then you got to consider Hutch too with those 3 sacks. I mean, what a job that defensive line did for Michigan. I mean, damn, I don't think Stroud knew what was coming at him, and I think he was pretty confused. I mean, we got to remember, he's a young kid. I mean, I think they threw all kinds of different schemes at him, blitz packages. But, man, there was a few plays, Chris, I saw where Hutchinson just literally threw number 75 on the ground, ran over him, and got to the quarterback. I mean, you just don't see that except in Pee Wee.
Yeah, he's a problem. Let's just call it what it is. And you can go through social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, Instagram, whatever your pick your poison thing is here. And I remember watching like a video package, the game is going, and he's a legacy, right? His father played at U of M, and in the household, his dad would always throw it in his face like, I still have the most sacks in a season, right? And that was always Aiden's goal, like beat my father, tie or beat my father. And then he went into Saturday's game, just one behind his dad. So you add on the 3 sacks that he accumulated, and now he is the single season all-time sack leader for Michigan. But one person who doesn't get a lot of love either is the man on the opposite side of the defensive line. I forget, how do you pronounce his last name? I don't want to slot. I was calling him Ojagwa. Yeah, this kid is a stud in his own right. And you look at him, Aiden on one end, and Ojagwa, however you say it. I sound like a dummy. Together, they're a problem. And the Ojagwa guy gets a little bit less love because Aiden is such a monster. You see the face paint. He's like a Viking. That's what I would think he's like. He's probably has blonde hair slicked back, some sort of ponytail, some sort of samurai cut. I mean, this guy, Aiden, is a warrior. And obviously, this kid is going to be playing on Sundays. And then right after the clocks went 0, Michigan wins, people storm the field. 2 seconds after it went final, you get folks on social media, you get beat reporters, people going nuts talking about Aiden, not only the Heisman, but does he make a case now for the first overall selection in the NFL draft, aside from, I believe his name is Travion, the other, Thibodeau, the other studly defensive end here. And personally, at this stage, you'd like to think that the Lions are going to have the 101 in the NFL draft. Would they benefit from grabbing Aiden Hutchinson, for their defensive line? And let's be honest here, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, that's what they're looking to do. They love those in the trenches guy, those high motor defensive, offensive lineman guys. So without question, the Lions will be drafting a defensive end first overall. At this point, who is it? Is it Thibodeau or is it Aiden Hutchinson? Obviously, I'm partial to Aiden here, but just a ton of good storylines coming out of Saturday.
Yeah, for sure. That was a lot of fun watching that game. I'll tell you what, BC, I've never been emotionally invested in a game in that long. I mean, for that whole game, like I was. I mean, I was yelling and screaming every play. It was exciting to watch. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. I mean, these two teams. I mean, then you see the clips of them at halftime. Jawing at each other. I mean, damn. I'll tell you what, Beastie. I believe if you would have said, Michigan meets Ohio in Toledo, and we're all going to meet in the field and we're going to duke it out. I mean, there'd be people down there in Toledo in the field ready to duke it out with our flags, and they could have their Bucky flags, and we're going to go after it. I mean, usually when I travel through Ohio, I mean, hopefully no Ohio troopers hear me, but I usually flip the bird to the Ohio sign when I'm on I-75 on the way through. I mean, even my kids have got to be used to that all the times we pass through there. But either way, man, that was truly awesome. I'm just excited for Saturday. Now we got to finish the deal, Chris. We got to finish the deal now. Get it done. So
Yeah. I watched both of those games. I watched Wisconsin play, and and they lost to Minnesota, which was fantastic. I mean, either way you slice it, Michigan versus Wisconsin, Michigan versus Iowa in Indianapolis is going to be a great game. But at this stage, the momentum that Michigan has, I don't want to be labeled one of those whiny, entitled Michigan fans. But let's be honest. After Saturday, how could Iowa, pose? Of course, they're a team. We have to go up against them, but the momentum that's gained by the Wolverines having won at home and all that. So we're looking to, at least I'm hoping the Michigan Wolverines can steamroll Iowa in Indianapolis and go from there. Briefly, while I'm up on the big screen here, I want to mention something. So on my phone, maybe I should have talked about it ahead of time, but there's this weird thing going around with Ohio State's quarterback, CJ Stroud. And this tweet is from Michigan Football Hot Takes. It's not verified, so who knows what it is. But there's some Ohio State Buckeye message boards out there. What an awful place that must be. Buckeye message boards are saying they believe CJ Stroud was sent to play for Ohio State by Michigan solely to be a mole for the program. Apparently, some teammates in the locker room found some text messages from Harbaugh to CJ Stroud. They were having a conversation back and forth. Date and time, we do not know. But now on these Ohio State message boards, a lot of folks in the Ohio State community, football community, they want CJ Stroud gone. They literally think he's a mole sent there by Jim Harbaugh for the Michigan Wolverines. Can't make it up, Scott.
I know. You know what? There's a lot of emotions involved. That's why they call us fans, because we're crazy. That's the way that's done. I mean, let's be real. I mean, if Harbaugh gets their ass kicked in that game, we're all saying Harbaugh needs to go. So,
he's the mole. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what, though? Let's be real. I mean, I've watched that game for the last 10 years. We've been getting our ass kicked, and they didn't have a scrambling quarterback. I think that hurt them. I mean, this is the first time they just sat with a quarterback back there and dropped back and threw the ball around, and obviously bit him in the butt. But yeah, we'll see here. It's interesting. Hopefully Saturday. I've been trying to find a spread. It hasn't come out yet. It looks like Iowa's 10.5 actually getting right now in that game. Over under is 43.5. But big game, 8:00 on Thursday, or actually next Saturday. But Chris, how was your DFS weekend this weekend here with some football? How'd you do this weekend?
I got to tell you, I'm riding a real wave with this NHL DFS. I told how long ago? Maybe a month ago. I told you before we went live, just right here, two dudes talking before we're live, getting made fun of by the producer. It's just all this nonsense going around. But we put all that aside, and I've told you during the week I lay low, but then when the weekends come around with NHL, I'm going nuts. I'm going all in, and I've been doing very well. I told you on Thanksgiving, live on the broadcast, I won about $800. That's, $800. That's a week's worth of pay if you're making minimum wage, something like that. But I put it all back in with NHL on Saturday. I know you and I talked about that briefly, and I was updating. I had 3 seconds, and I finally finished updating my last line. But I turned that 800 into 2,400. So again, I'm rolling with it. We're talking about a month and a half now, probably 5 or 6 weeks. I've been doing the same thing. Lay low during the week. Obviously, I'm going to have a little action going today in single game slates, and I know we'll get to that, Seattle at Washington. But in terms of hockey here, again, no more than $5-10 a night during the week. I just lie in wait and I pick my spots. So as it stands now, Scott, 5-6 weeks in a row, weekends exclusively, my NHL stuff has been fantastic. And to be fair, I get everything I'm doing, I give away when I'm able to, when you have me on this broadcast here. So I'm loving it so far. And also looking back yesterday with the NFL, I'm just furthermore, I'm more convinced that NFL DFS is just, it's starting to be impossible. We know, the tricks and what we got to do there. And the edge here is it slowly slips away. Everybody's got an optimizer. Everybody's, reading the same stuff. You and I have obviously talked about that, but NFL DFS to me in a big GPP, you might as well play a lotto ticket. You might as well get a scratcher because it is just bananas. Christian McCaffrey's done for the season. Dalvin Cook, it looks like he tore his labrum. I mean, there's absolutely no skill involved with NFL DS at this moment in time, in my opinion. If you look at who won the $1 million maker or $500,000, you get guys like Joe Flacco as your quarterback. I mean, so to me, NFL DFS is probably, I'm going to reel it in a little bit. I'm not going to be playing, thousands of dollars every Sunday like I used to. I'd rather put my efforts elsewhere, like the sports betting. That's what the show is about. And that's what I've always loved to do. Over-unders, point spreads, and NHL. And to anybody that's watching this now, I'm not saying anything out of school. Everything I'm doing, you can find right here with Scott Beer and Woodward Sports and Woodward Bets.
Yeah, I mean, there ain't nothing wrong with what, there's what you were saying in there, there's a lot that, is to be said. I mean, for one, yeah, you're playing a little bit through the week to stay engaged in the NHL, and then you're going big on a time or two. I mean, it's like playing blackjack, Chris. I mean, you can't sit there. I mean, if you start out with $400 or $500 and you get up to maybe 1,000, you can't sit there and think you're going to be able to bet $300 or $400 every hand, and you're going to keep, unless you just went on an extremely lucky streak. I mean, you're going to be out of money really quick. So, yeah, to play a few hands, maybe $20, $20, you win, and all of a sudden you think, you know what, I'm going for it. I'm going to bet $200. I'm going 10 times my money this one. Boom, you hit it, you back it back down to 20 or maybe 40. Yeah, that's how you build up a bankroll. And what you're doing is right. I whatever works for you, but you're right. DFS has become way tougher than it used to be. When I first started playing, there wasn't hardly anybody. We can talk about walking uphill 2 ways and all that other crap, sure, if you want. But yes, it's changed immensely. But Spencer, go ahead and throw up the FanDuel winning lineup here. Chris made a point, you're playing Joe Flacco and shit like that. I mean, the dude who won played Tyrod Taylor, Chris. I mean, he was super cheap. He obviously got there. The guy had Eckler, Fournette. You had to have Fournette yesterday, obviously, with the big day he had. And then he had Thielen, Higgins, Bourne, Gronk, Samuel. So, I mean, you look at my team here. I mean, he beat me. He doubled me up, more than doubled me up. I mean, I had some pretty chalky guys here, actually. I thought Brady to Godwin and Pittman. I mean, that game had 69 points. They just ran them all in. I didn't get any passing touchdowns from these guys, which is just terrible. You mentioned Dalvin Cook getting hurt, Chris. I have no luck with Dalvin Cook. So, it was a frustrating day. But, Chris, hey, you know what? We're all about the good karma here at Woodward Bets. So what we got to do is yeah, right now, my boy, I got to give my credit here to one of my best friends, man. I want to give him a congratulations, special congrats to my boy Ski. He won himself a DraftKings live final ticket here, very first one here. It's awesome. So he gets to go. 200 people are involved. It's 12.5 million in the total prize pool, 2.5 million the first. He stamped himself a ticket, no worse than 20 grand for last. Man, I couldn't be more happy for him. So, you know what, Chris, I got to say, man, I was in the King of the Beach thing yesterday on DraftKings, and it was where they had 200 and the top 75 gets to move on to the beach next weekend. And my DraftKings team did not quite get me there. I was close. I needed another Van Jefferson touchdown, and they actually freaking took one away that they ended up reviewing that they called a touchdown. If I get that, I'm pretty sure I would have just barely squeaked in, but ended up missing out. So I was really disappointed about that. And then all of a sudden, when the slate's over, I get a call and a text, and he was calling me. He's all excited. So I was trying to go from being bummed for my own doing, and then I just was, the longer that took to sink in, I was just so happy and excited for him. That's just freaking awesome. So we'll be wishing you luck as that gets to be a little closer, going down there to Miami and throw your hat in the ring there and hopefully get a shot to win 2.5 million. Now, I've been a couple of these live events, Chris, as I've mentioned before. I've been to the Playboy Mansion a few times, been to a lot of these live events. And man, it's a lot of fun, man. You get to know some of these people. It's like being at a party with 200 of your friends for a weekend. I mean, it's a lot of fun, man. It's nothing like it. I can't explain it. If you've never been, man, just hopefully you get an opportunity sometime. Anybody who plays DFS, it is truly the pinnacle of playing. But Chris, we got some NBA and some NHL tonight. I know you've been hot at NHL, so let's dive a little bit into some NHL here. We got looks like we got 4 games tonight. Looks like we got let's see here. All the over-unders are 5.5 here. So generally we see a 6 or something like that here. So for me, being a novice NHL player, a lot of times I do like to look at these high over-under spreads and say, oh man, I'm, like Beastie says, load up on a line, the line number 1, line number 2, maybe a power play line for these teams and build out a team, see how I do. So where the heck do I start today, Chris? There's all 4 games have 5.5. What are we looking at?
I know it's beautiful. And I will say, every weekend when I play, I'm not trying to belabor that here, but I love that when they chop up the slates, like after hours, games that like normally it's like Calgary, Vancouver, stuff like that. So you get 2 games. So you're looking at 4 different teams. That's when I go all in, or an 8 p.m. Express. As it stands now, just concentrate on Maine because there's only 4 games. But to me, you're right. Every game, the over-under is about 5.5 points here. And sorry, as I look down at my notes here, for GPPs, big guaranteed prize pools. I love the idea. Let me see where I was on the wrong page. I love the idea of the Seattle Kraken's first line. I love the idea of the Calgary Flames first line. And when you look at Seattle, obviously it's, when you play NHL DFS, it's just like basketball or football. You pick on bad teams. And there's no worse team right now than Buffalo. Actually, maybe Ottawa's just as bad here, but hey, who cares? Let's stack the Seattle Kraken's first line, and that would be Yanni Gourde. And you'll notice, if anybody that's watching this now, or even you, Scott, you'll notice Seattle is a hodgepodge. This is their first season as an expansion team. So they put together, in an expansion draft, and Yanni Gourde is centering their first line from the Tampa Bay Tampa Bay Lightning, something like that. And then when you go down the list here, first line winger Jordan Eberle from Edmonton, and then Jaden Swartz, first line, second power play unit from St. Louis. So you get this collection of guys together, these skaters, and Seattle has been just lights out in terms of points, blocked shots, goals, assists here. So as I said, for GPP, Seattle won and Calgary won, and you can't go wrong with Johnny Hockey, aka Johnny Godot, first line, first power play unit, and then Elias Lindstrom, first line, first power play unit here. And if you want a little bit of a teaser, I guess, let's say for GPPs, I love the idea of Winnipeg 1. The Winnipeg Jets are at home against the Arizona Coyotes. They're giving the Coyotes like 1.5 goals here. But to me, Winnipeg and 2 is in play. So for the dummies out there, just go all in on anything Winnipeg. First line is Mark Lachifle, Kyle Connor, Blake Wheeler, and it goes on and on. Pierre-Luc Dubois, second line, second power play unit. So to just put this in layman's terms, just stack the heck out of the Winnipeg Jets here. And if you want a little taster from the Vancouver at Montreal game here, I love Vancouver 1, Bo Horvath, Connor Garland, Tanner Pearson. And as we kind of get along here in the season, I believe I'm on with you every Monday here, Scott. You'll notice that as we get moving here, a lot of the same teams, a lot of the same stacks, because much like NFL or basketball, some of these certain teams, some of these certain player combinations, they just gel and they just work, and their price tags don't go up. So as I've said, if anybody wants to grab a pen and a paper that's watching this now or watching this later, Seattle 1, Calgary 1, 4 GPPs. In cash games, I love Winnipeg 1 and Vancouver 1. And for a little razzle dazzle, let's just toss in a little bit Montreal Canadiens second line here. Brendan Gallagher, Jonathan Drouin, and a little bit of Nick Suzuki there. So that's where I'm headed this evening, Scott. And hopefully you grabbed a pen and a paper, and we'll meet back this time tomorrow and see how you did.
Sounds good. I'll tell you, I was looking at this Seattle Kraken team. That name's awesome. But anyway, they, in their last 10 games, Chris, they have gone over 7 out of their last 10 games. So obviously they're either playing shitty defense or they're scoring lots of goals. So I'm going to imagine that they're scoring goals since you're recommending their top line. So, obviously they've been in sync here, 7 out of 10 games going over. So definitely like this Seattle Kraken team. And as you mentioned, Buffalo really struggling, but Yeah, looks like they're what 3-6-1 in their last 10 games. So they've been having a hard time with that as well.
And I'll
But
tell you
Chris,
what
we
here,
also
when you sorry to cut you off. When you talk about Seattle, their ownership percentages are still suppressed. Their ownership percentages are in the toilet. So on a night like tonight, you stack them up every which way, you can absolutely kind of jump ahead of the bigger lines here, because people, they don't even look at it. They go, Seattle Kraken, we don't know that team. There's no way they have any players that are good. But as I said a few times, they put together an expansion draft. The Seattle Kraken are just a gold mine for DFS purposes.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, that is what you're looking for. I mean, if yeah, 60% of the pool is all got a guy, or aligned, and they all score a goal and they get a couple of assists. Well, you're moving up with 60%. But if you had that 30% and they outdo them, you're pretty much putting yourself in a spot to cash. But yeah, I'll tell you, Chris, that's something actually I was talking about today with some of the brass. We're going to start making some videos on about the ins and outs of sports betting, what you're looking at, maybe some basic DFS stuff, and then as we go on, we'll get into some more more just expertise type stuff that we can pass along to you guys. But Chris, tonight in the NBA, we have 9 games tonight. So, I'm not claiming here to be the NBA guru as the beer man is, but I do play a little bit. So, obviously, what we know in DFS and basketball, you got to make sure who's out, who's in, try to find you some value and get you some minutes. But one thing I do like to pay attention to are some of the injuries that we need to keep our eyes on tonight, like Mo Bamba, maybe some Shake Milton, some Nikolai Jokic as another guy, Jimmy Butler. Maybe some Tyler Hero is another one. Brunson, we need to pay attention to. The Pacers and Clippers are on a back-to-back here. So looks like they sat out Brogdon a little bit. He only went 30 minutes. Chris Duarte went 30 minutes. Actually, Brogdon went 33 minutes against the Bucks. They lost by 18, so he got to wave the flag there a little early. It sits some of these guys out, but one guy that the Pacers and Carlisle have been kind of keeping an eye on is Chris Levert. So kind of going to want to watch him. He got up to 34 minutes the other day. Didn't really go out yesterday in the fourth quarter, but it is the second half of back-to-back. So I'm going to want to be sure we watch Chris Levert. He's actually popping on some of these optimizer models. So want to make sure he's in there tonight. But some things here that we definitely want to pay attention to are the Miami Heat. So if Butler's out and Hero is out, looks like we might have some value in that game that we need to get some of these studs we want in our lineup tonight. But as of this moment, there's really not too much out there as far as you would want to look at as far as any kind of value. Jacob Poltel at 5,800 on FanDuel isn't too bad. He's got 30 points in his last few weeks. Maybe like a PJ Washington, somebody like that would be somebody we could look at. Maybe maybe like a guy like just kind of looking around here. Maybe a guy like Derek White might be somebody we might look at. Paul George is a guy we might want to spend up. Christian Wood is a guy that I probably want to have in my lineup. On FanDuel, you can put him at power forward. But Vucevic for the Bulls is probably a center. I'd be looking at Josh Giddey as another player that has been doing really well, and I've had him in a few lineups here recently. But definitely going to have to keep your eye to the ground. Doesn't seem there is that much news. Just those two teams, as I mentioned, on the back-to-back. But looks like the Miami Heat is the one that may have some guys out at home against Denver that we're going to want to look at there. But we'll get back here to some NBA. Just want to break down a little bit of DFS for everybody. But I'll give out some – I got 2 best bets here in NBA, and then I'm going to have an NFL bet for you, too, at the end of the show for our best bets. But, Chris, as we mentioned, man, we had some injuries in the NFL, so let's just go over that real quick just to give you guys an idea who you guys might want to be looking at as far as maybe adding somebody in your league. So in your season long league. So Randall Cobb got taken off the field late in the game and did not return with a groin injury against the Rams. And as you mentioned, Dalvin Cook, he was carted off late in the third quarter, which seemed to be a turn later as a shoulder injury. So going to have to keep our eye on Dalvin Cook moving forward. But man, that makes Madison look really, really tasty moving forward here for the Vikings. We know he generally fits right in. they don't have a problem going to him. So I definitely like some Madison. And then Chris, the guy that I kept saying, if he's playing now, trade him before he gets hurt. He's gonna be done. I'd be damn, here we are. CMC's out. And of course, Chris, I played him yesterday. So I probably jinxed him and broke him, but he's not going to be back. He was on the IR. He was seen later in a walking boot. And then Dan Arnold also here left the game late. So it looks like one of our cheap tight ends is gone here. But man, CMC injury. Looks like this guy can't stay healthy, man. I think there's something to these guys that get all this usage, and then the next couple of years, man, they're just like a flat tire. They just can't seem to get going. So, man, CMC down again. Too bad to see. What do you think of any of them injuries there? Any of them affect you in your season long or anything like that?
Well, here's my whole idea behind this. They just put Christian McCaffrey on IR. He's out for the season. It was just breaking news about an hour or two ago. Something with a groin. He's getting an MRI on his hamstring and his groin there. But the Carolina Panthers have placed him on season-ending IR. And when it comes to Dalvin Cook, we now know what happened. He tore his labrum, I believe, in his right arm. So he's already been placed on IR. So Dalvin Cook is going to miss the foreseeable future. However, the Minnesota Vikings, PR team or their brass there said no surgery as of yet. They're still hopeful that just some rest and relaxation, some rehab here, and Dalvin Cook can be activated again in a few weeks if they happen to push for a wild card spot or they're on the verge of getting into the playoffs. So Dalvin Cook's season is not done as of now, but I would imagine as the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to have to see how Minnesota does in terms of win losses. If Minnesota loses their next 2 games or something like that, when they're like mathematically just about eliminated from the playoffs, then I would imagine Dalvin Cook would have surgery or it just heals up. I mean, look at Baker Mayfield. He said he's tore each labrum in his arm 17 times and he doesn't care. He's out there. He's wearing that thing on his arm and whatever here. So just a bummer for Dalvin Cook, bummer for Christian McCaffrey. And when you look at it, Chuba Hubbard becomes a stud. Alexander Mattinson becomes a stud. Mattinson and Chuba carried themselves very well earlier on in the season when Christian McCaffrey was out and inactive, when Dalvin Cook was out and inactive for a few games. Mattinson can hold his own. So can the rookie Chuba Hubbard. And more than likely, I see there's just no way that the Carolina Panthers don't try and cut their losses with McCaffrey and flip him in the offseason. We looked at, leading up to this season, people were saying, they wanted, Carolina wanted Deshaun Watson, and they were willing to give Houston Christian McCaffrey back, and everybody freaked out. How dare you? What do people think of that now? You got just a beat up Christian McCaffrey who can't get it done really anymore. And this kid's he's in his mid-20s. I don't even think he's 24, 25 years old. So to me, as crappy as this sounds, but as an adult man in his late 30s, I can honestly say I think we've seen Christian McCaffrey's best professional season as a running back. There's really no going back to those glory days. Granted, it was 300, 400 plus touches, but we've seen the best of Christian McCaffrey, and it's all it's downhill now for McCaffrey. Same thing with Cook. So if you can unload these pieces in seasonal formats, have at it. I don't know what you'd get back, but I also want to say in terms of betting in DFS, more time. Yeah, I'm doubling down on betting in DFS. The seasonal fantasy content and the seasonal fantasy idea, it's irritating. It stresses me out. I mean, I've never seen an NFL season quite like this. I mean, obviously, since Beer's not here, I'll give the you're an old man portion here since he's not here. But you've been around a lot longer playing fantasy sports than I have. That's no secret. Can you ever remember a season in the NFL that was this nasty? Every single day of practice, every single game, every single time there's a game, there's something wild, and there are major injuries to major talents.
Yeah, I have not seen a season that has just literally been riddled with injuries as this one has been. I mean, it's been awful. But you know what? I think this is a learning lesson that I like as we're playing, that I like to think to myself, like, man, you see these guys that have career years, different running backs, and like Jonathan Taylor is going to be one next year that everybody's going to want to take in the top 2 or 3 of their drafts. And he just had his first breakout season. I mean, we've seen it with the Barkleys, the David Johnsons, the Christian McCaffreys. They have 1 or 2 good seasons, and then they're done because these teams beat them up and keep using them. They get that 300 touches, and it's just tough for these guys to continue on and on. So to me, it's almost as if you got to almost try to avoid some of these guys anymore. If they get a ton of running back touches, I'm almost getting to the point where I'm actually gonna lower their value a little bit and maybe look for other guys that I can get that potential have some upside into where I just feel like that is just a potential for disaster as the season goes on. So, Chris, I think we just kind of take mental notes of stuff like that, as we're going into next year's drafts, when we're giving advice, like, hey, let's just be reminded that this dude just had a ton of touches, and it probably was going to raise the injury concern, especially nowadays, man. I mean, it's just unreal. I mean, these guys that are just being injured. I mean, you look at anybody's roster, and if you get the plus marks for the injured, I mean, half your dudes got plus marks next to them. I mean, it's unbelievable. But either way, though, the game goes on, though, Chris. And we do have one tonight, Monday Night Football. We have Seattle and Washington tonight. 56% of the money so far is coming in on the Redskins here tonight. Looks like we got spread of 47 minus 2.5 over under 47. So, Chris, what do you think? What do you think about this game here? Kind of a stinker compared to what we saw over the weekend here with this big Michigan game and some of the good games we had yesterday, and then we get this one here.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I opened up the broadcast saying kind of still riding that high. I'm on that pink cloud of the Michigan game. And much like you, just invested for every minute, every play, every snap. So when you fast forward now, you get past Sunday, and now, boom, we're here, Monday Night Football. Seattle Seahawks at Washington. I believe the over-under, as it stands now, is at 47. To be honest, I think it opened at like 46.5. So there's not a ton of movement on the line here. But as it stands now, it sits at 47 here. And Washington at home is getting a point here, and I love that. And as we get through this, I'll talk about the quarterbacks and the running backs briefly, because I could go on and on for an hour here, and I probably wouldn't be fair to you, wouldn't be fair to the producer. So I'll keep it simple here, Scott. I love this stuff. So when you look at the quarterbacks here, Russell Wilson, Tyler Heineke, from a DFS perspective, the way I'm attacking the slate, I want to preface it by saying everybody plays a different way. Scott plays different than me. Bear plays different. Like, nobody plays the same exact, no two people, I should say, play the same way when it comes to DFS. So for Monday Night Football, I'm fading both quarterbacks. Granted, Russell Wilson in Washington. Washington's 32nd overall against opposing quarterbacks. So is this a week finally, Russ, after he gets a mulligan that last week, first week off or back after the IL with the pin in his finger, whatever. Washington dead last against opposing quarterbacks, or Russ Wilson 15.5 on FanDuel and even $11,000 on DraftKings. I don't realistically see both quarterbacks throwing the ball a ton. I have Russ Wilson about 20 completions, and that's about it. But you're looking at 240, maybe 250 passing yards, although I think 250 is a little ambitious. Where he's going to make his hay tonight is running the ball. 5, maybe 6 carries, scrambles. I don't know if they're designed runs, or bam, he just takes off on his own with an additional 25, maybe 30 yards here. I do think he throws for 2 touchdown passes, but the yardage that he can accumulate in his 2 touchdown passes is easily made up elsewhere in your lineup. So therefore, I don't want to use Russell Wilson, especially in a captain spot or on DraftKings, because I believe it's like $15,000 or $16,000. And when you look at Tyler Heineke, Seattle, very respectable, 13th overall against opposing quarterbacks here. Heineke 14.5 on FanDuel, $9,800 in DraftKings. Literally almost identical projections in terms of their stat lines for me between Tyler Heineke and Russell Wilson here. 22, maybe 23 completions, 240, 250 in passing yards, and again, another 2 touchdowns. And more time, unlike most slates, when you look at Russ Wilson and Tyler Heineke, Washington and Seattle, we can probably guess pretty well where these touchdown passes are going to go. DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin here, but I do briefly want to highlight DJ Dallas, $9,500 on FanDuel, only $5,200 on DraftKings. You're looking at 8-9 carries, 35, 40 yards, and I do believe DJ Dallas finds the end zone on the ground here. Same thing with J.D. McKissick, 5 carries, ho-hum, 20 yards, but to me, I think J.D. McKissick goes nuts, 5-6 receptions in this one, and I think that's putting it mildly, 40, 50 yards and a reception touchdown for J.D. McKissick here. So maybe I'll just come out and say it. I have Washington, Scott, winning this one. Close one, 24-21. So obviously, I have no issue taking Washington plus the 1 point here.
Yeah, like we were saying about McKissick, Seattle gives up quite a bit of receiving yards to running backs. I want to say, if I believe right, they're actually number one in that department, where they've given up the most receiving yards. Yep, 726 yards. And it is a revenge game, too. This is McKissick's former team, so that's interesting. The one thing here that I found interesting is, so Washington is going to be without Chase Young, Montez Sweat against Seattle, their edge rushers here. So I think that's going to help out. It's going to help out Wilson a little bit. And then Seattle on the other side, they are pretty much in the bottom of the league as far as sack rate and quarterback hit rate. So they just do not get to the quarterback. So I think both quarterbacks are actually going to have some time to throw the ball today. I do like Terry McLaurin quite a bit for the Redskins tonight, but I do like the J.D. McKissick call, actually, especially if you're playing Showdown on FanDuel. I think he's interesting with that PPR points that you get over there. But Logan Thomas is another guy that you could look at today. Seattle has surrendered the 8th most points to tight ends. But, yeah, I think this game here, I mean, they played last year. It was 20-15 last year. It was in Washington. Seattle ran for 181 yards, only threw for 120. This game was pretty slow. The over-under last year was 45.5, and the spread was 1. So we're in a similar type situation. They actually played last December 20th, actually. So I don't know if that was the first round of the playoffs or not. It very well may have been. But anyway, just looking back, just kind of saying here, Seattle probably is going to try to come out and run. So I do like your running back calls too, Chris, with DJ Dallas and the boys over there. So definitely be looking at that. I don't mind playing 2 running backs either. Either team, you could play 2 running backs tonight, I think. You could go with Gibson and McKissick. Yeah. And you can go with Collins and DJ Dallas, as you had mentioned. So just kind of bring up a couple betting trends for the game. Washington is 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 games in November. The under is 4-0 in Washington's last 4 home games against a team with a losing record. The under is 4-0 in the Seahawks' last 4 games following against a spread loss. And then the under is 5-0 in the Seahawks' last 5 games in November. So getting cold. And both of these 2 teams, I know they generally like to run here, but I think this game is a pretty good potential for like an under in the first half or something like that. Yeah. I like looking at something like that. So that very well may be on my best bets. But, yeah, it's for some captains tonight. I know, you had mentioned a few guys for me. I think I'm going to look at maybe like a McLaurin. I do like Washington to win, as you said, so I'm going to look at a guy like McLaurin, and then maybe even a McKissick or a Gibson would be interesting to throw there in the captain spot. But Chris, we're getting there to the time of the show here that is our favorite part of the show, where we get to mention some best bets for the night. So let's throw some of them out there for you. I know you got some hockey. If you want to throw in some football tonight, maybe we'll give you even a bonus if you got an anytime touchdown or anything like that along the lines you're looking at. But Chris, let's get some lunch money for the people here today. What you got?
Sure, I'm gonna surprise some people right now. I have one of my best bets has to do with basketball this evening. The Charlotte Hornets go to Chicago to take on the Bulls, and the Bulls have been fantastic, or so I've read. I haven't watched basketball in years here, but looking, from an optimizer and looking at everything that's going on with the Chicago fan base here, the Chicago Bulls here, I'm willing to take the Bulls, minus 4.5 in this one. The over-under sits at 223 points. What do I know? All I know is maybe just get a little magic here with the Bulls, just sight unseen in a way. Sometimes, you know what they say at the casino, we're playing DFS, rookie luck, or first time luck. So I'll bet on the Bulls tonight, having never bet on basketball in probably 10 plus years. When it comes to the NHL games tonight, as I said, as you said, all the games are over under are 5.5 goals. I'd like to take the over on the Arizona Coyotes at the Winnipeg Jets in this one, and I'd also like to take the over on the Pittsburgh Penguins at Calgary, both 5.5. So you're telling me all we need is a 3-3 final, in overtime, 4-3, something along those lines, both games. Absolutely. And in terms of an anytime touchdown, this one is going to be easy peasy, but the more money you put on it, the more money you can make. I love the idea of a parlay. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Terry McLaurin, all anytime touchdowns. And to be honest with you, I'd go over on Terry McLaurin's his receiving prop bet. I believe it sits at like 78.5 right now. I think Terry gets to 85, 95 with ease. We're talking by the start of the fourth quarter here. So anything you can lay on Terry McLaurin, I'm taking the over on everything. Scary Terry, aka F1 here, Scott.
Love it. Sounds good. So for me, I'm going to give 2 NBA picks. The first one is going to be the Utah Jazz minus the 7.5 against Portland. I just think it's a pretty good spot for them at home. Portland coming off that back-to-back, so I'm liking them there in that spot. And then one other NBA one that I do like here is the OKC going down to Houston. I like OKC. I just am not a fan of Houston. I like picking on them. They're just terrible. 3-16 so far on the season. But I like OKC getting 2 points here in Houston. And then for tonight, in the NFL tonight, I am going to roll with exactly as I had mentioned. I was trying to just get a solid number here. I like the under in the first half here of this game tonight. So just trying to pull it up here. First half total looks like we have over 24. The money line over under 24. Right now it's at minus 135 on FanDuel. You may be able to find that money line bet there a little bit cheaper than minus 135. You may even get over under 23. It may drop a little bit, which will increase those odds. But I definitely like the under in the first half. That's probably my first bet. But Chris, hopefully we can pull through here for the people tonight. We got to keep this good momentum we got going here in the state of Michigan with our boys pulling out the victory over the Buckies. But so let's keep it rolling. Is there anything you want to say here before we get out of here?
No, I had a blast per usual. Just whatever you're doing, we're now we're on the road to Christmas. Thanksgiving is over. Obviously Halloween is over, so now we're on the fast pass, the fast track to Christmas here. So just drive safe, be kind when you're out and about. People are going to be nervous, stressed out. So much is expected of other folks here. Just be cool, calm, and collected. Be safe and be careful, and make sure you watch the show if you want any semblance of winning a bet or in DFS. So that's what I'll end this thing with here, Scott.
Sounds good. Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you guys get over there. Follow our Twitter page over there at the Woodward Bets. Make sure you guys follow that Twitter page over there at Woodward Sports. For Spencer Behind the Glass, for Detroit Beastie, I'm G. Rise, and we appreciate you checking it out today, and we'll catch you.